podcast. Wishes it was New Hampshire royalty.
Ricky wrote that one. Welcome to another edition of the Around the NFL podcast. My name is Dan Hansis. I come to you from a virtual room filled with some heroes. Mark Sessler, Greg Rosenthal. What is up, boys?
Hey now. Feeling good. I felt like last Thursday we were a little tense. There was a lot going on in the country. Now we're cool.
You're rolling now. We're getting the version of Greg where he's just sort of loose, easy, kind of like 2002 New Orleans vibe, Greg. A special vibe.
Is that true, Greg? Is this what you were like 18 years ago? Just totally relaxed?
I mean, that I would have been graduated from high school, but I did go back there quite a bit. Yeah, I'll buy it. I'm just,
You sold it. You sold it with effect. So.
Way to paint a picture, Greg. Everybody, this is week 10. Double digits now as we give you a comprehensive look ahead at the football to be played this weekend and on Monday night. And what we do, you know what we do around these parts. First of all, we have a controversy. Lock of the week controversy right now. Ricky Hollywood's really stumbling through this season. We don't get the lock of the week from her until after the fact. And she, guess what? She says, oh, I took the Raiders. Oh, the same Raiders that had a miracle win. Ricky, come in here a second. Had a miracle win. Now you get your second lock of the year. A little bit suspicious when you talk about the lock standings, Erica Tamposi.
I picked the Raiders. You didn't have me on the show to vocally state it. I would have. But
then they asked you on Twitter for one before, before the game a couple times.
Greg, I have so many people muted like you. I didn't see the tweet. So.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Tough.
So are you saying that everything was counted properly when it comes to our competition?
Yes.
Right.
No fraud.
I would have never thought that Ricky actually would have cheated because what's the point? But then Dan brought it up and she made it clear. Oh, actually, she did cheat. I'm kind of amazed by that. She's such a bad liar. I was like, oh wow, how about that?
I mean, your lock standings mirror your fantasy football team standings, which were in a league with you. So I don't quite get what the strategy was this season. But I'm going to stop talking because you'll probably prepare something for social media that destroys me 12 minutes from now.
It's like, hey, Erica, remember that time you lost Like, it's irrelevant to everything we're talking about. I can't cheat in fantasy football.
It's irrelevant as soon as you have a losing record. I get how this works.
All right, we'll get you on the record this week later in the show.
That's what we need.
For sure.
We need Ricky on the record before the games are played. Okay, handled that. That was just on my mind. We want everything to be above the board here at the Around the NFL podcast. All right, as we do every week, we do this draft style where we pick games and then we follow them on Sunday, the games that we pick. And it's quite fun and competitive. And I, the old Zeuser, have the first overall pick. And I am very excited to talk about what's going on in the desert. The Arizona Cardinals hosting the Buffalo Bills. And listen, the Bills needed that Josh Allen performance. They needed it because they were still doing okay. They were winning. They were 6-2 going into last week's game against the Seahawks. But if you looked at Allen's statistics over the 4 weeks that started the season, then compared them with the second quadrant of the season, it was night and day. And you were thinking to yourself, oh, this is a problem because we know that the Bills defense isn't as good this season. If Allen's going to revert back to his up and down level of play in the first two seasons, they're probably cooked. And then what does he do? He lights up the Seahawks, who blitz him to death, and it doesn't matter because he keeps his eyes downfield and makes good plays. So now he goes to the desert to face a Cardinals team that, while I still like them and they're in good position in the NFC at 5-3, Tua came to town, put 34 up on them, beat them. So I would think that Josh Allen should be able to do some business here as well.
All right, look at this. I look at this Bills team, and it's like if you take care of business against the Cardinals, and then you knock out a low-level Niners team, you swept the NFC West. And not every win needs to be pretty. That Patriots victory a couple weeks ago, you're eking out an opponent that has like a psychological hammer over you for 2 decades. So you get out of that one closely. The Seahawks game made everything right. I mean, I can't remember a game where a quarterback was sacked 7 times with less effect. I mean, he found guys over the middle over and over. Stephon Diggs is working in this offense. But you look at the Cardinals, and I think Leslie Frazier, the defensive coordinator of Buffalo, said it right. Kyler Murray is tough to diagnose, obviously, in games. But all week long, you run these scout teams. You can't really run a scout team that shows you what Kyler Murray can do on the ground. And you go into games pretty raw, wondering what you're going to deal with, and it doesn't work out with. So I think this is an incredible matchup between two unorthodox quarterbacks.
Yeah, the Cardinals are a great running team. A lot of that's just from Kyler Murray scrambling. There's no way to stop that. I think it's the most unstoppable play in football right now. And the Bills' defense has been especially bad against the run. But I think they're going to get better. I was never that concerned about Josh Allen. Relatively. I don't know if he's going to be like an MVP. I'm saying in that 4-game stretch, if you listened, I said I don't think he was playing that well. He played the best game of his career last week. I mean, I think we're underselling what he did. It wasn't just the numbers. It was the accuracy. It was the way that he did it. And I think you mentioned the first 4 games, and then he bouncing back last week. A lot of that is John Brown. I mean, John Brown to me is so important. If you line up their top 4 receivers, with John Brown being number 2 behind Diggs, but then you have Beasley and Gabe Davis is for real. I think that's the best 1 through 4 in the league, and I think Diggs and Brown might be the best 1-2 in the league. And what a perfect week to have them on the field against this Cardinals defense who's got one good cornerback, Patrick Peterson, but they've been rather banged up at cornerback. They might get some players back this week, but either way, it's not a good deep cornerback group. And I love that the Bills can change who they are depending on the week. You can either go pass heavy or run heavy, and I think they're going to go pass heavy. And I'm not sure this Cardinals defense, who has great numbers, is nearly as good as their numbers. I don't really trust their numbers if you look at the quarterbacks that they've done well against.
What about Kyler Murray not getting enough credit for being this good in year 2? I feel like it's flown under the radar just a little bit this season. Everybody knows he's great, and if you play fantasy, which I'm sure most people watching this show and listening to this show do, Kyler Murray has been a godsend for you. But man, he does it every week, and I found this interesting that Josh Allen and Kyler Murray both account for 24 touchdowns at this state of the season. Of course, Murray's doing it in his 2nd year, Allen in his 3rd.
I think we're in an environment where we are learning to be less impressed with quarterbacks because they're showing up as fully formed starters. I mean, the Patrick Mahomes situation, Deshaun Watson, and Kyler Murray has been absolutely incredible to watch, but he's in the sea of other quarterbacks that are all doing remarkable things. It's not happening in year 4 and 5. So I think it's fair to say that I don't think he's under the radar because he's probably like a top 5 luminary in terms of quarterback, Q rating where you want to get him on prime time. But I think that more people have to be exposed to the Cardinals. They just are a team that's not been on, they don't get all the night games and stuff. Kyler Murray is a raging star in the making.
And we talked about how early in the year he wasn't as good throwing the ball as they were a year ago. They've fixed that. So I feel better about the Cardinals offense right now than any time in the season. The passing game is kind of in sync right now. And Kyler Murray has more rushing yards than Lamar Jackson. I mean, he is one of the best pure runners in the entire NFL, running back or quarterback. There should be a ton of points in this game. Let's pick it. I just want to pick. I'm picking the Bills. 3 points. High score. Let's pick it.
Greg, you're so excited today.
He is very antsy.
This is a tough one. Give me the Cardinals in this game. I think I just got on board with Kyler Murray saying he's as special as they get. And how about this for a number? We all went nuts. And Mark, don't worry, we're gonna get your pick too. We all went nuts last year, as we should have, with Lamar Jackson winning the MVP. But Kyler Murray is on pace to become the first player in NFL history with 4,000 passing yards and 1,000+ rushing yards in the single season. Lamar just had 3,100 last year passing. So I mean, that's what I'm saying. Mark, go ahead. I got the Cardinals by a field goal. How about you, Mark?
Well, I love that. I think Buffalo, by going run heavy for a couple weeks, lulled Pete Carroll and the Seahawks into thinking they were going to go run heavy in 70-degree weather in Buffalo a week ago. So you don't kind of know what they're going to do. I like that about the Bills. But for me, the Cardinals, we just did our midseason picks. I put the Cardinals in the Super Bowl. I kind of rolled the dice there. So they're not going there if they don't win this game. I think they'll win it by 10 points.
So you're making your pick based on your insane Super Bowl half prediction. That includes the Dolphins, I think, going as well?
I mean, it's just the Dolphins, it's just this sort of world that I live in where all these things finally need to sync up. It makes literally no sense in terms of what the viewer is watching right now.
All right, well, good luck to you, Mark. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Up next in the draft, Greg Rosenthal.
All right, I'm going to the NFC West again. It is the Seahawks facing the Rams. This could be one of the biggest games in this division all year long. If the Rams win it, they are tied for first. And Sean McVay's kind of owned Pete Carroll in this matchup so far, winning 4 out of 6. They gave him trouble. Even last year when the Rams were at their worst, the Rams beat them last December. And I think it's a chance for Brandon Staley, who we haven't really talked about that much, the Rams defensive coordinator, to let everyone know in a big-time game that he matters and that he can cook up this Seahawks offensive line. That was my big takeaway from the Seahawks loss to the Bills, is that the Seahawks offensive line started reminding me of what they looked like when Tom Cable was back there. Some bad memories. I mean, the interceptions, the turnovers, the fumbles were largely on the line, largely on not picking up blitzes, and Staley's been pretty creative. The Rams defense have definitely improved. You have Donald, but I think Staley is going to give this line a lot to think about. And if they're not good, it's like Russell Wilson's carrying this team a little too much. Then he's carrying the line. The running backs are hurt. We know the defense is very good, and that's like a little too much weight to carry, Mr. Sessler.
Yeah, I mean, I love the fact that the Rams, who have been kind of hot and cold, I feel sometimes they're not the sum of their parts, but they have 5 division games left, and so they have a chance to make as much of an impact inside the West as anyone. And when I look at Seattle and I watch that Buffalo game, it's just I want to say, hey, Seahawks defense, this is not a dress rehearsal. This is real life. This is happening before your eyes. Let's buckle up and play some defense for a change. But, I mean, the aberration aspect to me, and you're right about the offensive line, Greg, but Russell Wilson has experience playing behind hot and cold offensive lines his whole career. 2 interceptions, 2 fumbles. That's the worst Russell Wilson game we're going to get in years. That part's not going to happen again. So you're going to have to come back and deal with the Seahawks offense that still had DK Metcalf lighting it up last week. I mean, the pieces are still there to win shootouts. So I'm not handing this over to a Rams team. Jared Goff, that Miami Dolphins team, like their cover 0 scenario made life terrible for Jared Goff before the bye. I don't like the teams are able to unspool Jared Goff that way and put that kind of stuff on tape.
I think this is a big game for both teams. I think we're going to learn something about these teams because the Seahawks, it's historic what's going on here with their defense. They are giving up the most passing yardage by anyone in the history of the league. They're giving up 30 points a game. And now you get a Rams team coming off a bye, which gives Sean McVay, one of the great offensive minds in the league, 2 weeks to game plan and figure out how to attack Seattle. And I want to see what Ken Norton and Pete Carroll have in store with their defensive game plan here, because we saw what they did against the Bills, where frankly it didn't work, where they just blitzed and blitzed and blitzed, and they set a season high with 7 sacks, but they just got carved up in the secondary. So, on that side of it, it's like, what can the Seahawks do? Are you really going to put Russell Wilson in a situation every week where he has to be perfect? And if the Rams, Robert Woods said it going into their bye week when asked about where they're at as a team. He said, we're good. We're not great. And that's why I have them in my power rankings at number 13, which is where I stick teams that are like, I don't know, they seem pretty good. Well, we'll see what they do here. We'll see what they do here.
Where's the Seahawks? To me, like, that describes the whole NFL, though, outside of maybe Kansas City, Baltimore. I would even throw in there, but I know I'm higher on them than most. Like, everyone's good, but not great. And I do look to the division matchup. Like, you can look at the Buffalo game and, okay, that's interesting, but these are 2 teams that know each other so well. And McVay's always had answers for Carroll's defense, even when Carroll's defense was playing pretty well. And to me, that is significant when I look at this matchup, that he's going to know how to get passing yards against the Seattle team.
Yeah, I do want to know sometimes, like, the communication between Sean McVay and Jared Goff. Goff doesn't strike me as a Big Ben figure who's going to go and call his own plays. And at some point, I wonder what's going on there. Maybe, in the downtime, they're asking, hey, Jared, what's your favorite type of soup? And it's minestrone. But, like, I mean, what I want to hear the whole thing. There's got to be, I want to see Goff take a leap. I really do. I want to see him take over games. I got to go back to that Dolphins game. He looked completely out of control in that game, and they made life so difficult. And it's a script for other teams to follow.
I mean, but
there's no reason to think the Seahawks can do anything remotely close to that.
But someone will at some point. Maybe not the Seahawks, but it's like it lessens my faith in the Rams overall.
Jared Goff doesn't need to lift his game to a heavenly level because he's a limited guy at that point. I think he just needs to be good enough. I don't think he's ever going to be a superstar. Pick. Well, it doesn't matter. I mean, we're 5 years out from that now. He is who he is, which is when things are going well, he could be very good to great. And usually he's kind of this, what is he, the 13th best quarterback? There's the number 13 again.
Sometimes.
So maybe he's a perfect match for who the Rams are. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back. All right, Mark, you're up next.
I do not hear Mark.
I lost him.
I think he might be muted right now. I thought it might only be me.
Well, you know what? Here I am.
Here we go. Mark, you are up next.
Well, I love sitting in this third spot and to see what's come to me. Tampa Bay at Carolina, two very fascinating teams coming off of last week. One, the Bucs, that basically produced like the lowest rushing yards of any team in NFL history, rushing attempts, and basically had their worst loss of their franchise lore. And this is a franchise that started 0-26 way back in the day. Not what Tom Brady was expecting. I understand the week one tumble to the Saints. You thought that they would have come out and looked like a completely different team. They were schooled. They could not. That slow start to me was concerning. That said, I think the Bucs team is a team that's going to give you a game like this here and there, and I'm not overly concerned. What I want to see, though, is how they respond against a Carolina Panthers team that went into Kansas City with zero fear last week. I thought that the key word for them was aggression. They dialed up a 4th and 3 play that led to a touchdown. They did a fake punt that was very successful. I mean, this is sort of what Matt Rule, I think, is about. He's going to coach in situations. There was a point in the game where they kicked an onside kick with 10 minutes to go. That's when you can catch people off guard. Now, you were playing Andy Reid, not Tara Reid, so you didn't catch Andy Reid off guard. But the Panthers come prepared, and I think this is a potential trap game scenario for the Bucs. Lose this one, and they're in a bit of hot water.
That is the first Tara Reid reference since 2003. And I just want to say,
I don't know how many Reeds there are, but she would not be prepared for onside kick action, Dan. I'm assuming.
I mean, was that because Tara Reid and Tom Brady, they had it going on for a little bit. So it all connects. It was a darker period in Tom Brady's personal life, but he was great professionally. It's pretty dark right now because, look, you could break down that game last week. I think we tend to overrate what happened last week in general. But in this case, I don't think we can, because they play the Bucs defense that is a very similar team in the Panthers. The Joe Brady, Teddy Bridgewater offense in so many ways mirrors what the Saints like to do. I think Teddy right now is playing very much like a younger, slightly more mobile Drew Brees, the way that you don't know what's going to come and get you. That's what surprised me most in that Buccaneers loss. It really wasn't the Bucs offense, because they've been pretty sporadic all year. They were bad against the Giants. It was the Bucs defense being so tepid, kind of playing back and waiting to see what the Saints did, and it just didn't work at all. And so seeing a team like that move the ball up and down the field is a big-time concern, and I think Todd Bowles, who gave up a lot of yards in this first matchup when these two teams played, has to be concerned. They got turnovers in that game early. They were a little fluky, but I think it's the defense that kind of needs to take charge, because Tom Brady in the Bucs offense, I think, has shown they are not a top-5 type of offense. Is this a top-5 type of defense, Dan?
Is it a top 5 type of defense? Yeah, I think it is. I think people are putting too much into one bad week for the Bucs. And I know I'm on a show that it also doubles as the Panthers Teenage Fan Club, and that's good. And you make a good point. You make a very good point, Greg, about the similarities between what Joe Brady's doing and the Saints are doing. However, I don't think the Bucs are a team that is just going to nosedive here. And I'm actually going to go the other direction and say, I think you're going to get a very good Bucs team that's angry and annoyed and embarrassed. And I think you're catching, if you're a Panthers fan or you're the Panthers, I think you're catching Tampa at a very bad time, and you're catching them probably without Christian McCaffrey. So all due respect, I loved what Carolina did there in Kansas City, and they competed. And if they were a little sharper down at the end of the game, I think they might have even stolen that game. But I think the Buccaneers are more likely to deliver a bounce back performance as an elite team than continue to go down a wormhole of doom and sadness.
Yeah, I would just say if I am a part of a teenage fan club for the Panthers and Matt Rule, then guilty as charged. That's fine. But I mean, they're hanging around in these games, and I thought that their game plan was really good for Kansas City. They're just well coached, and so I don't see. This is the thing. They come close every week. You got to get into a situation where you're not lining Joey Sly up for an 80-yard field goal to tie it at the end. I hear you on that front. But for year one of this experience, to do what they did to Kansas City, a Kansas City team that just blows the doors off of people, I would think that would get on Bruce Arians' radar as like, we're going to have to come in with a really solid scheme ourselves here.
Maybe.
No doubt. I mean, rematches, I think, favor the better coaching staff. So I think there's an open question, who's the better coaching staff. But I'm not that worried either. I thought Dan was really building up to something here.
You thought I was.
Building up to something I'm going to do. And that's lock up the Bucs right now, because Tom Brady, he's played so poorly.
See, I thought you were going to lock up
weeks.
the Panthers. You got us all excited that you were going to really hang some onion.
No.
Right.
Brady retreating from pressure week after week. That's not going to happen when you play the Panthers. They barely force any punts. They got no pass rush. And I think that's a game Tom Brady can be very comfortable with.
All right. Looking forward to that one. That's a good game. Mark, snakes to you in the draft.
I mean, look at this. I'm going Chargers at Miami. This is, the one thing is when you have Tua in the league, you've got Justin Herbert, you've got Kyler Murray. We're getting these incredible quarterback matchups week after week. And last week, Murray, Tua did not disappoint. I'm even more excited about this one because I think Justin Herbert is one of the most beautiful, pure passers I've watched in decades. It's just incredibly fun to watch him play. And I know all this business about, the Chargers and the last second losses. Daniel Popper of The Athletic made a great point. He talked about how the sort of Groundhog Day effect that Chargers fans are suffering through, but that in the real movie Groundhog Day involving Bill Murray, the actual director, now that it seemed like, he solved his problems and went through the same issue over the course of 2 hours. Good for Bill Murray. But in real life, the film's director said that he thought that actually lasted 30 to 40 years. So that's concerning for Chargers fans. They got to get out of this funk. And I think with Justin Herbert, you're going to get to the point where you're going to go on a run and win some of these games. My concern here is what we've already talked about on this show. What Flores and his defensive crew are able to do to quarterbacks. They won that last game with 5 assistant coaches out of the commission because of the corona situation. So they can do it like Belichick's staff with 4 or 5 coaches on the whole staff and still make an impact, guys.
Can we put some respect on Harold Ramis's name? He is not just the director of Groundhog Day. He's Egon Spangler.
Harold
he's
Ramis's
a legend.
people.
Rest in peace.
Harold Ramis's people told me not to mention his name on NFL Network, so you've just created a lot of problems for me, Dan.
Yeah. So I'm totally with you on Herbert. He's so fun to watch, and if you are a fan of a team that's waiting for a quarterback to blossom, like me with Sam Darnold, or you, Mark, with Baker Mayfield, when you see guys like Justin Herbert who hit the ground running, you're thinking to yourself, oh, we don't have our guy. We got to find one of these guys. We got to keep looking. So, yeah, he's exciting to watch. He's fun to watch. This is a great value pick in the draft, Mark. And the Dolphins this is a great test because I put some disrespect on the Dolphins last week. I locked up the Cardinals. And listen, some of it, you're not going to get a defensive touchdown every week. And I think that's a big reason why they've won each of these last 2 weeks, is because the game script changed in an outstanding way for them. But at the same time, I'm past the point where thinking they're a fluke. I think this has worked out perfectly with Tua, especially coming off that performance in his second start, where he has raised the ceiling of this team, and they're not just some plucky underdog. I think they have a chance to actually make noise and even hang in the AFC East race.
I mean, the thing is, would you rather take Herbert or Tua long term?
I mean, we've only seen 8 quarters from Tua.
That's fair. I guess you could base it on the I mean, I'm taking Herbert, and I think Herbert's got more help. It's kind of crazy right now. If you look at Tua's situation, they're down to their 4th and 5th string running backs. They just lost Preston Williams to an ACL. I think that's a pretty big loss. It's not like their offensive line is great. The defense is good. And so this game to me comes down to like situational football coaching and special teams. The Chargers special team is like the worst running act in the entire league. It's terrible every year. And the Dolphins special teams win them games each and every week. They might be the best special teams in the league, but Herbert's got more support. Joey Bosa looks like he's going to be healthy. That's huge. Brian Bulaga looks like he's going to be back for the Chargers. So this was the game I had the hardest time picking because all the mojo is for Miami, and yet part of me still thinks like they're skating. They're a little over their skis, and the Chargers are due one of these games.
One little thing about Anthony Lynn is punted on 4th and 1 5 times in the last 8 games. To me, that's just like, that's not 2020 football. And you have the quarterback and the pieces on offense to attack versus playing conservative. I agree. I just think let's just go for it. If you're the Chargers, slay these ghosts through your actions. I mean, they have got to go on a run at some point.
That's what we were talking about on Sunday night, when you could say, oh, there's something cosmic going on with the Chargers. Maybe they wouldn't be being put in these positions to get beat in the last second if they were a little more aggressive and really took the bull by the horns, as they say, earlier in the game. So Anthony Lynn is make no mistake, as exciting as they've been, as great as Justin Herbert has been, Anthony Lynn is coaching for his job right now. And you might need a win like this, or a few wins like this, to be back in 2021. We'll be right back. Time now for Road to Victory, presented by the United States Marine Corps. Greg, you're up.
All right, I'm taking Joey Burrow against these Pittsburgh Steelers. The last time we saw Burrow, he was lighting up the Titans and getting better each and every week. And, when it comes to the AFC North, Mark, I kind of think about you, because I feel like you don't so much root for the Browns as you do just like root against other things that could pain you in the future. So I'm asking you, like, which result are you more afraid of? Basically that the Bengals took the number 1 overall pick in Joe Burrow that's just going to haunt you for the next 15 years and is going to be better than your number 1 pick, Baker Mayfield, or the Pittsburgh Steelers winning another Super Bowl this year with Big Ben.
A lot of salt in that setup towards
There's a lot happening. I mean, it's a no-win situation. The Steelers winning the Super Bowl, that pain would be over 3 months from now. And I think that's where they're probably heading on some level. I mean, Joey Burrow is going to be around for 2 decades. So if I had to pick a reality, I'd have Pittsburgh and win their little trophy and dance around and have a nice time. But Burrow is for real. And, the Steelers the Steelers have beaten them 13 out of 14 times and 10 times in a row. And that in the 2 teams from Ohio know this story well about Pittsburgh and Baltimore. And the reason that Burrow's exciting is that he can change all that. This narrative of Cincinnati unable to accomplish anything against its 2 real rivals. I don't know if Cleveland or Cincinnati have too many rivals at this point, but Pittsburgh has put it to them over and over. And it kind of reminds me of last week where, the Steelers probably would have lost that game in other Mike Tomlin seasons. They pulled it out. They're a little bit of a different team, but this is a different type of challenge against a team that you've beaten up for years.
Steelers are coming off an interesting week. They almost get beat in Dallas by a 4th-string quarterback, but they get the job done. Big Ben injures both his knees, not just one, both his knees, we learned this week. So he's dealing with that. Then he heads to the COVID list for close contact reason. It's just been one of those weeks that can only happen in 2020. But I trust the Steelers. Why wouldn't you? I mean, they're the only undefeated team in the league. And I think what we've seen week after week with the Bengals this season, with the exception of 1 week against the Ravens, they're going to hang in games. They're going to give teams scares. But I don't think they're going to do it to the Steelers at home, because I think Pittsburgh knows full well that Cincinnati is no longer this laughing stock that you're going to roll over. And assuming everyone's healthy and able to play, I think Pittsburgh's going to put up a lot of points, and I think they're going to win. Maybe not going away, but I think we're going to get another W with a schedule that continues to stay pretty soft. Mercury Morris getting nervous.
I looked at the weather though. Little rain perhaps in the forecast, so that makes Joe Mixon's availability important. These teams are kind of similar in some ways that they don't really go deep too much. Ben Roethlisberger has fewer plays over 15 yards than any quarterbacks in the league that don't play in MetLife Stadium. It's Daniel Jones and Sam Darnold are the bottom 2, and then it's Roethlisberger. And then Joe Burrow is really interesting because he's a number 1 overall pick we're so excited about, that has a below average, arm and isn't really pushing it down the field. He's still got to prove that he can do that. And it's a fascinating matchup because I don't think you can underscore the Ben knee factor, because they were already somewhat limited as a passing game when he's healthy. Now he's out of practice all week. The Bengals are the best team in the league, and I got to be careful how I say this, Dan. I know you like to talk about the desert sometimes. They are tied for the best record in the league at beating expectations. That's how I'm going to say it.
Well put.
So a lot of doubt on the Bengals this year, but they always keep it close even if they lose.
I mean, how about Zach Taylor wins a division game just outright, though? I mean, at some point, this has to happen. You've got the quarterback now.
Overdue. Yeah, I'm with you, and I believe the Steelers, believe it or not, are ranked 26th in the league in offense right now. But have you gotten the feel? First of all, they've won every game they played. Number 2, most weeks I don't come out of the game thinking, wow, this is a really bad offense. It seems to me that it's maybe not as explosive as an old Big Ben offense used to be, and you're not seeing, like we predicted, a potential 50 burger, or at least I did last week in Dallas. That didn't happen. So maybe not hitting high levels, but also the floor is pretty high with this offense to me.
It's okay. It's like, is okay going to be enough to win 3 playoff games? I think they're going to need to get better as the season goes along, but they have the people to do it.
Yeah. Do you think they do better than what the desert thinks and actually win a game here? Come on, anybody.
I think they got a shot. I picked the Steelers on my game picks column. Check that out. But I picked a close game. Put it that way.
There's a little. I really kind of want to lock the Bengals up, but I
Whoa.
do. I the only reason I'm hanging where I am in this is because because in the past, of course you want me to, because in the past I would fall for these little rushes of emotion, and suddenly Sunday night, I'm in the L column, so I'm staying away. But if they handle their business, I might have to lock the Bengals up down the road.
That means nothing. I might rock up the
I know,
Bengals
it means literally nothing at all.
But you know what? I think it works out for Greg and I, because if Mark locks up the Steelers, the Steelers' opponent, and then Pittsburgh wins, Sunday night is not fun for anybody when Sessler's in the chair. So let's just be grateful. That was Road to Victory, presented by the United States Marine Corps. We'll be right back. Welcome back. All right, let's take a break from the draft to dig into the primetime games. We'll start with Sunday Night Football. Man, Al was so angry. Al Michaels was so angry about the blowout last Sunday night that it was almost hard to watch, because you could just feel the anger coming off him. And now we get a Ravens-Patriots game, which at least the Patriots found a way to beat the Jets, the lowly Jets, on Monday night. So they're not dead in the water by the time they get to Al, Chris, and Michelle. But still, you feel like despite the win, New England could be in a lot of trouble here. What do you think, Greg?
Well, this is one for you. It's one for the haters. A toast to what. You got to enjoy it.
Were you about to quote Kanye there? Because you can't.
I was
say
about
that
to
on TV.
quote our failed presidential candidate Kanye. Thought better of it, and I think if you're watching this game and you've been rooting against the Patriots like a ghoul, like Dan, for all these years, this is Christmas. Going to play Baltimore. I know it's in Foxborough, but there's no home field advantage anymore. Home teams have a losing record this year across the NFL, and the Patriots are going to add to it because Cam Newton might be playing better, and Cam Newton might be fine. The run game might be fine. This is a brutal matchup. You can't run on the Ravens. The blitz is going to get to Cam Newton, and the offense is not the point in New England. It's the defense. It's the defense that is least capable of stopping this Baltimore rushing attack. Do you remember last year when everyone thought the Patriots were one of the best defenses of all time? They were always a little overcooked there. The Patriots ran all over them then. This is the 31st best defense in the league right now, according to DVOA, and they have no talent up front. I would expect the Ravens to run for about 400 yards in this game.
400?
Right? It's been a weird couple of weeks for the Ravens, though. You had Marquise Hollywood Brown complaining about the aerial game a couple weeks ago.
And then dropping a pass last week, so let's not complain if we're not going to make plays.
Sure, but we have Lamar Jackson on the Rich Eisen show basically saying that teams are calling our plays out before we snap the ball. There's just frustration, I'm someone that I've always been a Greg Roman guy. We once, as you know, we shared a pizza at the airport after the combine.
You shared a pizza? That was not how the story originally went.
I had a piece of his pizza because he was, he couldn't eat the whole thing. He didn't want the whole thing. So he said, do you want a piece? So I had a piece. But my thing with Greg Roman a little bit, it seems like at every stop, like he starts out taking over the league, like with the Niners, they do 14, 15 formations at once. It was amazing. Baltimore, revolutionary. But year 2, year 3, things start to change a little bit. I'm a little concerned about this Ravens, maybe not in this game, but holistically, who are they this year?
I don't care about anything else. I just want to talk about you eating the leftovers of the offensive coordinator of the Ravens.
I mean, it wasn't in the refrigerator overnight.
Like he gave you half a piece?
It's like the crust was bitten off?
No. We had a wonderful conversation. He actually told me a couple things about the Niners that got on my radar. Nice guy. And then he said, look, I can't eat this whole pizza. They make you order a whole thing.
You still text him every once in a while?
Not recently. I would say that the relationship feels, slightly one-sided, but
I'm sure he's happy talking about this, that this is on television right now. Listen, I want to bring up, since you brought up the desert, that the people in the desert, for the first time, and it's got to be in 20 years, think that the Patriots can't even keep this within a touchdown. That in their building, that has not happened since the 90s or maybe 2000. So things have obviously changed. No one that follows the sport closely was tricked by that win over the Jets. So yes, if you want to say that the ghouls that have been waiting for the Patriots to lose get a chance to celebrate, okay, but let's not totally overlook the fact, and I know we haven't in some of our conversation here, although it's been mostly Greg Roman pizza based, that the Baltimore Ravens are still dysfunctional on offense. So going on the road in prime time, would I be totally stunned if the Patriots are hanging around in this game because they're well coached and well prepared and make a couple plays? No, I'm not like getting ready for a party.
I would. I mean, You say dysfunctional. It's funny how the bar changed, and I get it. They're coming off a historic season. They're number 1 in the league in rushing. Lamar Jackson is still the best running quarterback of all time. And they still have a great running game, and they're playing a team that can't stop anyone on the run. I mean, they make Zach Moss look like Walter Payton. So the matchup is perfect, and I'm not that worried about the Ravens. I think if I was doing the power rankings, Dan, I'm not trying to come, for your spot here. I would have the Ravens number 2. To me, they're still the second best team in the league because they can run the ball. They're a great defense. They have Lamar Jackson, and everyone else I can poke a few more holes in.
So the Steelers going to their building 2 weeks ago and beating the
Ravens dominated that game. I mean, I know they lost it. It's significant, but to me, that if anything, that game made me feel made me feel better about the Ravens than almost any game because they made the Steelers look like their little brothers for a while.
To your point,
Lamar
Craig,
made some turnovers.
To your point, in the second half against the Colts, they were dominated in the first half, and we all know 55 yards, but they played with tempo and pace a bunch down the stretch in the second half, and they looked a lot better. It might have been the best half that Lamar Jackson has had, I think, through. It was 10 straight completions through the air. So I'm not selling them short or anything. I just think that they're not last year's Ravens. They have a little bit of things to work out. When the players start talking, that's a bit of a different aura than last season.
I find it weird that there's a lot of excuse making on Lamar Jackson's part in the national media. I just think call it what it is, which is maybe they're not dysfunctional as a whole, but as a passing game offense, they haven't been right this year.
Right, but you said dysfunctional as an offense. He is the key to the best rushing attack in the league. It depends on how you want to measure it. Maybe one of the best 1 or 2, but in total yards, they're the best. Their offensive line is by far, to me, their biggest concern. Because they lost Marshall Yanda, a future Hall of Famer. They're totally banged up. They were struggling before they lost Ronnie Stanley. They lead the league in negative plays, which is a sign of a bad offensive line. And I think when they play better teams, that's going to hurt them. They're not playing one of them this week.
All right, let's move on to the other primetime game this week. It is Monday Night Football, an NFC North battle between the Vikings and the Bears, and seems like two teams going in opposite directions. And you said it, Greg, and it's true, and it's a crazy stat, and it's totally connected to the COVID-19 world that we live in right now, that there is no home field bump in the NFL right now. So even if this was any other year, I'd say I know the Bears are, they're on a 3-game losing streak, and this is an offense that is dysfunctional. We could all agree on that. But you're in this island game. The lights are up. You have 65,000 fans going nuts. Maybe they find a way to keep their season in decent shape. But I just don't see it. I think the Bears are one of those teams that no one bought into them off the 5-1 start. And usually when we all, the football cognoscente, when we all decide that a team is done, they make us all look dumb, but not with the Bears. They have absolutely played to what we all expected. They're going in one direction. And the Vikings, Mark, this is a team going in the opposite direction, where Dalvin Cook is an MVP level player right now, back-to-back 200-yard games from scrimmage, 4 games this season already where he's had at least 2 touchdowns in a game. And Kirk Cousins is playing a lot better as well because his running back is a super-duper star.
Yeah, I mean, my one concern, Chicago still has that defensive strength, and they have held Cook to 86 yards rushing in his past 3 games against Chicago. So it's sometimes, you can forget the past, but because he's playing like a completely different type of human being. He's the best running back in the league right now. So you'd like to think on prime time, they're going to figure that out and get him yards through the air as well. Kirk Cousins has thrown 34 passes over the last 2 games. That's how I like Kirk Cousins. We don't need too much of him. This offense is functional because they want to be a run-first attack. I'll tell you what, I'm a little suspect about this, but I'm going to do it because I've turned the tide on the Vikings. I think they're going to hang around until December. I'm going to lock them up because of my lack of belief in the Bears to some degree as well.
Wow. Okay.
I don't think it's
that
that
wasn't
daring,
a confident one. I think you should have gone Bengals. I hope don't switch out of it.
I know you think I should have.
Don't switch out of it, but Kirk Cousins has never beaten this Bears team. I do think division matchups are instructive, at least that Matt Nagy has owned Mike Zimmer for whatever reason. It's mostly been the Bears defense.
Did you just lock up Kirk Cousins in primetime?
I did. It's a new day. It's a new era.
I don't know.
They changed what they did coming out of the bye. So yes, Dalvin Cook is obviously the key to it. But one thing they've done is they've stopped throwing deep so much, but they have thrown a ton on first downs. Even though they're so run heavy, they've actually flipped the script where Kirk Cousins is throwing a lot on first downs. That's the best down to throw on, of course, with play action. They've been very effective, and the defense has changed what they've done too. The matchups have helped, but they're playing a little more cover two. They're less aggressive. They're just trying to kind of prevent the big play, keep the offense in the game because it's an offense first team. They are 3rd in the league since week 3, the Vikings, in expected points on offense. And that's pretty impressive. I mean, they are a very good run game. They are great when the Kirk Cousins doesn't make a mistake. I'm excited to root against Kirk Cousins, though, in primetime now that you locked him up there, Mark.
Yeah. Well, Greg, I mean, if anything, Greg, you can feel me. I'm on your heels. I'm only one game behind you, so I'm right inside the Greg Rosenthal mind, and that's where I want to be.
In his mind.
I love it.
Kirk Cousins he's funny because everybody likes to have fun with Kirk Cousins, and we're doing that as well right now with his issues when it comes to playing at nighttime in primetime. But I will say that he's not a quarterback you have to hide either. I know he was really bad for a stretch this season, but Kirk Cousins is pretty good. He's maybe never going to be great, and he's probably never going to be hoisting a little trophy, as Mark called it earlier today. He's probably not going to be that guy, but he's pretty good too. That's why he got paid $30+ million a year. So I think the way they are now and why that number doesn't surprise me and why I thought earlier in the season that the Vikings were going to be good is because it's all there on offense. I know you lost Stephon Diggs, but now you have Justin Jefferson in there and he's stepped in and become a Pro Bowl level player. It's all there for them to be a top 5 offense, and we've been seeing it for the last couple of weeks. So I like the Vikings in this game. I'm with you, Mark. I just couldn't lock it because, I don't know, weird things happen. Weird things happen with Kirk Cousins in primetime.
I'm already concerned with my decision, which is usually not a great look.
All right, we'll be right back after this. Welcome back. All right, that is a look at Week 10. You could, again, every Sunday night, the flagship program, you check it out. We'll recap every game that we previewed here, and then you just get locked in with the Around the NFL podcast and follow all of our writing on NFL.com as well.
Well, you don't have to follow mine. If you're busy, I would say.
Okay, if you have free time, follow Mark's material as well. Until next week, enjoy your football.